Fridays are always a treat, especially when you have Girls Frontline airing. I mean, the strategy, the tactics, the combat, and the way the commander to kind of warrior relationship sort of works easily could be so forgettable because they are T-Dolls. Their memories get backed up. We can not really get connected to them, but by them having personality, by them having these kind of human traits, it makes you feel like you want to see them succeed. And when we get into those action set pieces, I mean, M4A1 in this episode, the tactics of kind of like the booby trap, laying out the clues so that they could find him, the reinforcements, versus this executioner who, on a visual level and combat level, was a badass. I mean, when you see, like, almost like in slow motion, how quickly she can deflect bullets that are basically being rapid fired at her, it's hard not to kind of be like, God damn, this is really, really fun. I really enjoyed this show. I really think it's underappreciated in the anime community for sure. I mean, you can look at mall reviews in general. Despite them not really mattering all that much, it does give you at least an overarching opinion of what people are thinking of a show, and I think this one deserves a lot more love because there's definitely passion. There's definitely room for improvement, of course. There's that one scene in this episode where M4 basically gets like slid like a hockey puck, and it's just like those are like really slideshow animation, but in general, I like how the show's put together, and the OST is continuing to blow me away. I mean, I'm really glad like how heavy the riffs will go when we are watching machine guns fire, because could you imagine if it was like a simple slice of life soundtrack or a very poppy soundtrack? Like, it just wouldn't fit the kind of military formation that we're kind of experiencing here. Now, before we jump into the episode though, I do want to make a quick mention of this because over the past couple of videos, I've been getting a lot of both spoilers and information that is clarifying things that I'm not asking for, so please keep any information you have, whether you've read the manga or you've played the game, just keep that to yourself, please and thank you, or at the very least spoiler tag it, because when I review shows like these, I like to experience all the information fresh, and I've been getting a lot of comments that are just like blatantly telling me things that haven't been revealed in the episodes yet, so please just try to keep that to a minimum so myself and other anime onlys can have a fun time discussing the show, because I think it's a quality production, and the more information I have about it, the less I can speculate, which honestly dampers my own enjoyment for the show. Now, in terms of this episode, I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I like the idea of pretty much really focusing on the commander even more, because I was a little worried walking into this episode because I liked what I saw of the commander last week, but I was kind of thinking like maybe they're just going to keep the focus for the most part on, okay, we're going to start a mission with the commander planning, and then we're going to switch over to the T-Dolls and what they're going to do in terms of their operation. But I like the idea of just seeing how the commander is getting her information. The fact that when she's watching tapes about the AR team, it's not just the combat log, she'll actually look at the aftermath of them sitting around drinking coffee. And the fact that she can so, like, casually, like, pick up on information that most people would overlook. I mean, the person next to her was literally like, oh, we don't have to watch this. And she's like, no, I want to see it. And the fact that she could clue in on the fact that even when they're not in battle, she's someone who puts others before herself. And, you know, just to see those little details. And, like, I think one of the best moments and one of the most heartfelt moments of this episode is when we had, I think it was MP5 or one of them, they came in to basically say like, hey, we know you've been feeling down, but you don't have to worry. We back up our memories. I'm still me. You don't have to worry. And I like that little smile and then head pat because it is an interesting concept, right? I mean, they basically function like a person. They eat food, they drink, they have a living personality. But the difference is if they get their heads blown off, as long as they've been backed up, they can be placed into a new body. But it's interesting to have a commander very much still value it as, even though that can happen, I'm not going to just throw you into the field because, I mean, you are a person based on how everything's operating, but it's very much different than how some of the head people are also thinking. So it'll be an interesting balancing act to see how much she's willing to push it, because there's going to be those missions, right? You know they're backed up, and you know you have to send them to their death in order to succeed at X operation. So I'm curious to see how long it would take for her to get to that point, if ever, in return what the T-Dolls would think about her and how she's operating, because so far she has a lot of respect in this. And I like the idea of what happened with M4 in this episode, where when they said sugar cube at the end, I was like, what the hell are they talking about? Did she hide something in a sugar cube and someone like ate it? And then I love the idea of like, because she's basically being hunted, she's laying booby traps to then lure her to her actual location and she can get these rapid fire off. And the fact that the executioner was just so like, she was oblivious to a lot of the simple things, because how could these pathetic dolls do anything or discover things that she couldn't? And the fact that she wasn't even going to waste her time with fighting them because the real fight was something that she was after, And if they decided to be foolish enough to attack her when she was going away, then she would just kill him right then and there. And the fact that they could find these little details that she overlooked and wouldn't see, like the idea of almost like the breadcrumbs, but using sugar cubes, and the fact that the ants, and just seeing where the actual location was, because it's true, like they didn't have the location when she saw them. And to see those little details and how it built up, like these are the things that make the action in the show so good. From episode 1, when they took down the turret mates, which was still just so badass to think about, to last week with everything that went down, to even the idea of luring into a trap despite kind of being overthrown in terms of strength. Had she not had the reinforcements, I mean, there's no argument that she would have lost there. But I like just seeing how everything's building and how they're doing that balancing act of having the commander side, the more tactical mission side, getting ideas of how we kind of send our operatives in, getting a more human connection to them, and then seeing the badasses just take place where they're firing their machine guns, they're kicking ass, they're taking names, but then at other points they're getting completely annihilated. And I like how they detail the gore for this show, right? Because they're essentially robots, right? So when their heads get blown apart, it's not blood, it's not brains being splattered. It's just like they break apart like metal, and you see these wires and these glitching effects. And I really like what they do, especially when like they have someone pinned down, like they'll blow their legs off and they'll blow their arms off, and you'll just see like the wires dangling and sparking because they can't escape at that point. Or when you have M4 just completely blow apart her head, and it's just like the jaw that's left, and the fact that it can still sort of speak. You just don't get that type of cool stuff when it comes to like an actual human character, because I mean, you would just be getting into some Saw stuff if you were doing what was happening here to like a normal human. But having it be like animatronics, it's really cool to see what they can do with an anime medium to kind of up the ante with the visual flair. I mean, for an episode that was kind of just like, it was hunting, right? There was a character going on the hunt, and we were going through this wasteland, and when things happened, it was like catching me by surprise in a good way. Like the idea of the booby traps, where, I mean, naturally, I wasn't thinking it was a decoy. I was like, it wasn't so obvious that it was like, oh, clearly she wants her to go a different way. More so is like, okay, I mean, clearly it's spottable, but it's something that, had the executioner not been there, the general grunt soldiers following her probably would have been blown to pieces. So I like how there's enough there to make you say, okay, I see how they caught her off guard without it being like, oh, this only happened because here's one of the main characters of an anime, so to speak, right? Like I said, I think the show is definitely underappreciated. There's personality in the characters, there's kind of like this lighthearted moments where it counts, like with the head pat, and then the brutality when it kicks into the action. It's well thought out, it's fairly well animated for an average anime production. It's not going to be the Demon Slayer or the Attack on Titan of the season for production, but it does what it needs to, and even though there's some small details I'd change, like a little more polish, a little more movement, overall, I'm a happy camper. I mean, I thought this one was going to be cool. I definitely think it has one of the best soundtracks so far that I've heard this season, and the idea of the military, I mean, you just don't get to see that kind of dual-side perspective of the commander on a screen and, you know, the soldiers in the actual field all too often, so when they pop up, I definitely enjoy them more than most military anime that I get to consume. But let me know your thoughts and feelings. What do you think of this episode and the kind of like bait and switch that they ended up doing in this episode? What do you hope to see with next week's episode? Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.